Welcome back. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. You're joining us on NewsX. While Prime Minister summit with Nordic nations is the biggest news story of the day, something else from the PM's visit has also gone viral from Norway. Heckling, a woman who claims to be a journalist in Norway, has put out this tweet in which she seems to be heckling the Indian Prime Minister when he exits the stage after delivering the joint statement with the Norwegian head of state. Her tweet reads, "Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, would not take my question. I was not expecting him to. Norway has the #1 spot on the World Press Freedom Index. India is at 157, competing with Palestine, Emirates and Cuba. It is our job to question the powers we cooperate with." Her post on X soon was shared by India's opposition leaders, questioning the PM on not taking questions during a joint statement. The Indian embassy in Norway, though, responded to her, informing her that the press conference is going to be held at 9:30 p.m. The woman tried to do something similar at the press conference, but was given back in style by India's senior diplomat, C.B. George. Let's listen in.
Hear a lot of people asking questions about why this, why that. But let me tell you this. We are 1/6 of the total population of the world, but not 1/6 of the problems of the world. We have a constitution which guarantees the rights of the people, fundamental rights of the people. We have equal rights for the women of our country, which is very important. In 1947, we gave the freedom to vote for our women. We won the freedom together, and day one itself. Many countries I know, the voting right for women came after several decades after India gave that freedom. This because we believe in equality, we believe in human rights. And what is the best example of human rights? The right to change government, the right to vote. That is what is happening in India. We are so proud of that. But we have a constitution, as I said, which guarantees the fundamental rights of our people. If anyone whose rights are violated, they have the right to go to court. Some of you are from Indian media. You know how many stories appear. We have how many breaking news coming every day in the evening. At least 200 TV channels in Delhi alone, in English language, in Hindi language, and multiple language. People have no understanding of the scale of India. People have no understanding. They read, one or two news reports published by some God-forsaken, ignorant NGOs, and then come and ask questions. Don't worry about it. We are proud to be a democracy. We are a democracy. Actually, if you look at it, let me share something very interesting. India is a democratic society. It is not in 1947 we became democracy. We were a democratic society for centuries, for millennia, and we are proud of that. If you look at it in the history of India, which continues even today, you will see that whenever there was persecution anywhere in the world, they came to India, and Indian society accepted everyone. That is why we have this diversity in India. We embrace the world. We did not eliminate. We did not go for ethnic cleansing, which many countries today have only one religion, today only have one ethnicity. Why? Their forefathers eliminated the rest of them. That is not how we did it. Okay? We have diversity because we have tolerance. We have diversity because we embrace diversity. Whenever the world has faced problems, we welcome.
Right, let's open this up now. Ambassador Bhashwati Mukherjee, a former diplomat, is joining us live. We also have Adit Kothari, international affairs expert, live with us. Shruti Das Gupta, foreign affairs expert, joins us live on the broadcast as well. Surinder Singh Lali, foreign affairs expert, also is with us live. Let me begin with you first, Ambassador Mukherjee. What did you make of this, schooling, really, that the diplomat there gave this journalist, or should I call her a heckler, who was trying to get attention on herself at the joint briefing, which she mistook for a press conference, and then at the press conference as well later, which she was formally invited to? What do you make of this entire episode, which has somewhat distracted us from the Nordic summit, hasn't it?
It hasn't distracted me at all, because I've been dealing with this for 40 years in my diplomatic career. That was C.B. George, Secretary West. And the only thing that he forgot to add was the entire ranking system that this woman was talking about where we are with, I don't know, some countries she mentioned, way down the list. These rankings are all orchestrated by Western think tanks who want to keep India down. And it is high time, and we've discussed it on NewsX, if you remember, that we should introduce ranking systems with foreigners too on the board, and we should change the fundamentals of this ranking system. Secondly, uh, when we set up the India EU summit in June 2000, I was Joint Secretary Europe West, and the EU wanted to have a dialogue with us on human rights, thinking they could lecture us. So I was the chairperson from the Indian side. The moment I brought up colonialism, racism, xenophobia, anti Semitism, and the invisible caste system that exists in the West, whereby you can call your boss at a party, Dear George, but he has the right, Dear George, to boot you out the next day without an explanation. That is their caste system. So they can't pretend they don't have a caste system. When I explained all this to them, their enthusiasm waned. And they said, why don't we have this dialogue once every 2 years? I said, you're welcome to have it every 6 months. I'm there for you. Please, let's continue it. It became once in 2 years. These kind of people are kept deliberately at these press gatherings, particularly in countries which have a highly um, colonial approach to India. They regard us as brown people with no rights, with caste system, with child labor, miserable specimens who deserved to be colonized. These kind of people represent that line of thinking. The only way to handle it is with total dignity, complete detachment, and to explain one or two really nasty things that happen in Europe. I would include the Holocaust, for example. I would include the disgusting horrors of colonialism perpetrated by white people all over, not just by the Brits, by the French, by the Dutch, etc., and point out that we as a nation, as Swami Vivekananda said, have never looked to colonize countries or encroach on other people's rights. That is the only answer to give. And after that, you just close the book and move on because they are miles behind you and they're never going to catch up. We are miles ahead. That is the answer I would have given. That is the answer I used to give. And frankly, what this woman said makes no difference at all. She must be doing it to get some publicity. And 3 days of her post going viral, after 3 days, something else will come up and her post will be forgotten. I would just ignore it. And I think Sibi did a great job. I'm proud of it.
Kothari, what do you make of this post that has now gone viral? Interestingly, it's also been picked up by India's opposition leaders to question the government and Prime Minister Modi as well. Is it a storm in a teacup that this journalist was trying to create? Is there something more to it? Was she carrying an agenda? Adit Kothari, what did you make of this entire episode?
So there, I think, before the Indian opposition actually picks this up, I think they need to do a little bit of house cleanup. Remember there was a point when, 14 news channels and anchors were basically debarred from the opposition media panels. So, this is like the pot calling the kettle black. And, I'm sorry to say that the Indian opposition is not doing themselves any favor. Because what this woman basically represented was activism being masquerading as journalism, which it wasn't. I mean, she needs to understand basic fundamentals first. This was a press briefing. It wasn't a press conference where she thought she could interject and, get some eyeballs rolling. Post that, the Indian High Commission did invite her for a press conference where she could ask her questions, which she did, and which Commissioner George was actually giving a sequential answers to. But because she did not have the appetite to hear him out, or rather did not like the question, the answers that he was giving, she decided to stomp off. So my problem is with the kind of activism that we see in the sort of journalistic world, where you need to show a little bit of appetite, you need to have a little bit of gumption to be able to digest the information. That patience has completely run out of people like Ms. Ling. Now, when we look at the press freedom index, which she was also trying to wave around as some holy scripture. Remember, she was telling Prime Minister Modi that we are the freest press.
Yes.
Now, freest press. Look at the number of TV channels in Norway. Look at the number of news. In terms of outlets that Norway has, and you compare that to India, where 24/7 you've got news channels debating compelling issues, questioning the prime minister, questioning his governance, questioning his government, making memes on him. So, to say that, India ranks 157 out of 180 in that World Press Freedom Index, I think everybody can understand that, that's a carrot and stick game played by the World Freedom Index report, the Reporters Beyond Borders, which has a very opaque methodology of actually formulating which country gets what ranking. I mean, imagine where Pakistan gets ranked higher than India. We know for a fact that every news in Pakistan is curated by the DGISPR before it actually goes out, and that country is ranked higher than India. Nepal and Bangladesh are ranked higher than India. So what are we talking about? Press Freedom Index or World Press Freedom Index is an opaque body that needs to be questioned, and it's the responsibility of people like Miss Ling, who was actually showing this organization as some beacon of truth, that where is your methodology? Can you please tell us how we are number one and how India is 157? But instead of that, she wanted to go into some warped human rights issue that Mr. George rightly pointed out comes up every day in
Right.
some sort of NGO organization.
Okay, let me take that to you, Shruti Dasgupta, as well. This obviously does raise questions on that index as well. Once again, it puts a shadow on that index, how flawed it is. What parameters it has that no one has shared. How big a country is that also is not talked about as well. People have been pointing to the size of Norway and how it perhaps won't even comprise of one Vidhan Sabha in India. Probably it may be just one municipality which would elect a councillor in India. The size of the demographic there. But what did you make of this entire episode, Shruti? What does it tell us about what this lady was attempting to do? Was it a publicity stunt? Has she exposed herself by not wanting to also listen to the answer that was given to her so eruditely by our Indian representative there? And does it also show how free and democratic India is, that they actually heard her heckling? They heard her heckling to Prime Minister Modi, not once, but twice. And yet she was invited and answered at that official press conference, at that official press briefing there in Norway.
Greetings to you, your viewers, and my fellow panelists here. What I understand from all of this is that it looks very, very suspicious the way this woman is cropped out of nowhere. If you look at her X timeline, her last post before these 24 hours was in 2024, and the one before that was 2022. So she's not regularly posting on at least X as a social media platform. I've gone through her muck rack, and I've found that she at most writes 2 to 3 articles a month. So it's not as if, and none of them are on foreign nations or their leaders except Trump. Trump she actively despises in words that I wouldn't like to use on a national television. So it's not as if she's a international correspondent, that she was there. She was not there as a representative who understands the South Asian nations. She was just planted there, and within hours of her putting out that story, it was quickly picked up. I think within 3 hours, the LOP responded to her tweet on X. You have to understand the amount of amplification a person who had just about 800 followers when she began this journey or should have had for an LOP of India to notice her post. So the amplification was pretty much orchestrated, at least from my point of view. And there are a large number of people who write, who speak, who do not have who do not have that kind of followership. They do not probably subscribe to social media formats in that way. So I'm not saying social media is a way of justification of whether she is important or not, but the way her popularity of the issue was given space, it shows that there is definitely something fishy. Now, let's talk about the paper that she was writing for. They have done, at least within these few months, a couple of hits on India itself. I was reading one where they started to speak about India having captive labor in sugar plantations. They called it the bittersweet of the India sugar tale. So there is a definite theme with which the organization that she seems to be working for, and it shows that this lady does not really come from an open point of view. Now, of course, as my previous panelist pointed out, that we have memes going out on our prime minister on a daily basis. I would love to see Norway question their princess, their crowned princess, on their Epstein file issue, the same way the Indian, people and public on all social media platforms, on all other ways in press, are questioning Modi government and their representatives. It's not that clean and clear. The press index is, as you've said, very manipulated. It also, the other indices where Norway tops is the suicide index, where the largest number of people are unhappy with their lives. Unfortunately, Norway is also ranked, I think, if not the top, one of the top few nations which are the happiest. So somehow the happiest people are also the people who are killing themselves in the most nonsensical way of suicide. So these rankings are self-exposed. We've spoken about it. There have been papers written
Yes.
about it. Minds brighter than
Yes.
mine saying it.
Absolutely,
So
and we all have seen that movie as well, Mrs. Chatterjee versus Norway, which showed what happens there. Their system, should we be saying that oh, the unhappiest children or the most unsafe children, what would you like to say, Mr. Prime Minister of Norway? But we don't do that, because that is not how you treat friends. I mean, Norway is giving on one hand India the highest honor, and then this journalist is still doubting whether they should trust India or not. Surinder Lali, what do you make of this? Was this a setup? Was this something that was planned for a while? Was she carrying some country's agenda, someone's agenda? What do you make of it, Mr. Lali? And what did you make of the answer as well that the seasoned diplomat there gave? Ambassador Mukherjee is proud of him. I think she speaks for all of us. But what did you make of that answer?
Hilarious. I have been to Norway 5 times. I visited there, and Lier and Drammen are 2 of my favorite cities, and it has some of the best salmon. But having said that, 56 lakhs is the population of Norway, and 30 lakhs is good now. I don't know if she understands India as a subcontinent. And God knows which think tank or organization gave her a trip over the cellular lines across to Sweden. We don't know. I also did look her up in the net, and I couldn't find any comment on Epstein files for which had her role in Norway. I couldn't find any reference to the 71 regime changes NATO has done, where Norway is a part of it. The way Donald Trump has been belittling, mistreating journalists by calling them piggy, stupid, dumb, are you out of your mind? I couldn't find any post or any link to that. So what I found hilarious was the tone. She was coming, she was trying to be, as if we were in an investigation room. She said, and I quote, why should we trust you? Quote, we don't need your trust. You can go live your life. We have a very vibrant democracy. We have a very vibrant, our election commission is something which is a, precedent that we've set for the world. And there's one more thing. There are 50,000 Pakistanis in Norway. So I don't know. Maybe somebody gave her a freebie over the weekend to her friends over that Indian Pakistani cuisine. They don't even have you say Pakistani Indian because nobody shows up. And on a personal note, since I have friends in Norway, and I used to get a lot of calls when the United States in the Ukraine-Russia war was on. And believe me, I must have said at least 10 debates in which all 3 of us were there. But I said, why do you want us to be involved in a war which we didn't start? Because they used to come, with some strong language personally to me that, you are funding the Russia war. I said, no, we're not. First, do your math, do your research. If anything, we are, leveling the gasoline prices across the world. So, they didn't want to think that. They don't want to see that because they are white. They've lived in their ivory tower. They come up from a position of power. And anybody who's not white or any color, pantone shade under that ought to be accountable to them or should be living under their thumb. I mean, to be honest, I used to tell them that if you looked up, You're telling us that we're funding the war. The United States buys, fertilizers, uranium, and palladium, and your European Union is buying energy. Germany is. So I don't think they want to see what they don't want to see. So I think she got her 2 minutes of fame and probably a nice meal at some Pakistani restaurant in Oslo.
Okay. All right. Well, let me, come back to you now as well, Ambassador Mukherjee, on indexes like this. How should they be dealt with? As you were saying, we've done shows in the past on this. It's not like this is a new topic, at least for NewsX. But, why do such arbitrary indexes continue to be given so much importance? Just because it suits, obviously, the opposition in India. Rahul Gandhi wants to tweet on it. This lady has picked it up. We don't know for what purpose or what agenda. How should such indexes be dealt with?
They have to be dealt with by developing counter indices. That's the only way to do it. And then there's a lot of qualified people in India who can develop it. As I said, the board constituting the think tank which would develop such an index has to be multinational. So you would have to have some Indians, you would have to have some people from the West, some people from the African continent, etc., who would do the necessary research and establish that these are the correct indices. For example, it is a well-known fact, as one of my co-panelists pointed out, that the highest suicide rate in the world is in the Nordic countries. And the reason for that is that it is lack of sunlight. That's what my Nordic friends told me. Secondly, these are very unhappy people who take to alcoholism because of great loneliness and solitude. They have so many problems in these Nordic countries, which those of us who come from the fiery Delhi summer don't understand that fiery Indian summer gives us good health and gives us happiness and ensures that very few people commit suicide because it's too hot. A lot of people commit suicide because they can't see the sun. So these indices can be developed. They must be developed in a manner in which the West accepts the veracity of these indices, and it's time that we did something about it because it's been going on for too long. Secondly, we have to accept that there are what we call in French agents provocateurs. These people are always stationed in highly successful visits of the PM, and we have to learn to deal with them without showing any emotion at all. I never show any emotion. I just rip into them and destroy them into small little strips like a keema kebab. That's the only way to deal with them. Never show any emotion. Why show emotion? Person is talking nonsense. And I think it was Shruti who pointed out that her last tweet was 2 years ago. So who cares about her? How do we know who's bought her out? Is she an ISI agent? Has she been bought over by one of India's enemies who do not like to see the fact that the Nordic countries, which were used to be critical of India, have done the third summit.
Absolutely.
They only do summits with US. So it's a great victory for us. We should just forget about this woman and move on.
Okay.
But yet, your channel is very influential and should push for our own indices.
Yes, absolutely. It's important to have our own indices, as you were saying. And let me now bring you in, Adit, also on this entitlement mentality as well. Do you believe this reflects, once again, unfortunately, this European entitlement mentality, that they can lecture everyone on everything? They won't look inwards, but they want to lecture everyone on everything, from human rights to democracy to freedom of press. They won't look inwards, but yet they lecture everyone outwards. Is this that mentality? Not just, I'm not speaking just for Norway, but the typical, European mentality or Western mentality?
Let's see what happened in the UK over the past year. People were getting arrested for social media posts. They were getting arrested for putting their emotions out on X. And that was happening in the UK, which is, deemed as one of the freest countries in the world, where, the press has the freedom to exercise, their narratives, etc. And that was happening in the UK. It doesn't happen in India. Okay, fine. It used to happen in West Bengal, but even now that's changing. thanks to the people who have been involved, who voted that particular government out. But that doesn't happen in India.
Yes,
In
you
India,
had told me on X you want to speak. You had told me on X, Adit, you want to speak on the outgoing West Bengal government. So here's your chance. You've dissed them on the program. Okay, on a lighter note. Yes, go ahead. Complete your point, and then I have to take a break.
But I just have to say that in India, people are talking against the government when they don't like policies by the government, when they don't like what the Prime Minister is saying. That is they're free to criticize. So that question is not that. It basically demonstrated how little these people actually know India, how little these people actually understand how vibrant the democracy and the democratic systems in India really are. And that is what it basically exposed. So, it's sad to see that the opposition in India is basically, rallying up to this, because in other sense, they are basically selling out their own country at the end of the day.
Yes, but
they should be disagreeing with this.
Absolutely. But as always, we like to look at the positives as well. So in the end, every cloud has a grey lining. The only grey lining in this sort of episode can be the fact that C.B. George, has become a hero. I mean, for those who didn't know him, now they know him. And now they know how erudite he is and how eloquent he is. So at least he had his chance to explain to these, people who are naive or who don't want to know about the state of affairs within India, democracy, when women got the voting rights, and of course our constitution and democratic setup as well. All right, on that note, we're going to take a very short break. My thanks to all of our guests for being with us. Back on the other side with lots more. Don't go anywhere.